Hey everybody, welcome back to Mal's Board Game Room. We are live on location at MVC Comic-Con, and we're just about to start the panel all about board game designs. So I have Wyse and Gavan Brown. We're about to go on stage right now, so I just wanted to start the live stream. We'll see you there. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, hello everybody. We're going to get started with the panel. Today we are all about board game design. So my name is Melanie with Mal's Board Games. I'm a content creating about board games. I play a lot of board games. I have played prototypes. I cannot design board games. So I have brought two friends that are better equipped to talk about board game design. I'm Wyse and Gavan Brown. Now, both of us are board game designers. I brought a few of their games to just kind of have social proof. There's proof to create board games. They also work with Rock City, which is a local board game publisher. They're based out of Calgary. So they work for a publishing company as well. And we're going to get talking about board game design. So even though I personally prefer to play the games and design the games, I have brought very, what's the word, like well-equipped guests to handle this topic. So I'll pass the microphone on to you guys.
You're being a little bit too humble because you run a podcast for a long time, and I think you are quite the expert.
Oh, for sure. So I brought questions just in case. I don't think I'm going to need them, but I wrote them really fast. All right, so first thing before we talk about board game design specifically, what is often by board game and from that board game design?
Okay, so both. I got us into board games and board game design. So I think mine was the same. Mine was the same actual day. So it might be easier. I was a video gamer, an avid video. I still am an avid hardcore video gamer. And I kind of the only board games I knew were the ones that you go to Walmart and it's like, oh, the same board games last 50 years in Walmart or Target or whatever. So I went over to my wife's husband's, like my wife's cousin's house. Her husband after dinner, he says, "Hey, you want to play this game?" He shows me this box, and there's like this weird-looking knight on the front, and it's blue, and it's called Carcassonne. And I was like, is it good? Like, I was like, so what is this janky art on the cover? And like, I just had this like snobbery, my video gamer snobbery, like all our games are trash. And so I was like, yeah, is it good? And he said, No, it's not good. That's why we play it. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm gonna play it and I'm gonna hate it. I'll just want to do something other than sitting on this couch. And so I went and I played it, and it was very foreign and to me, like how the game functioned. I'm like, there's no fighting in this game. There's no player elimination. There's no bad feelings. We're building something together, even though we're against each other. And this is, of course, the Euro style board game that we've come to know, which originated in Germany. And by the end of that session, so the game did so many things that I didn't even realize that or understand that board games can do. For many years before that, I wanted to be a video game designer. And by the end of that, playing that game, I just kind of stared at it in absolute like astonishment. It was a very life-changing moment, and at that moment, I said, I thought I wanted to design board games for the rest of my life, actually. And so I immediately transformed from a video game designer wannabe to like, I want to actually design board games. And that's kind of what I started, like pretty much immediately after that, I started designing, started what became a board games. I'll hand it out.
So mine is somewhat similar, but it didn't happen. The playing my first modern war game and getting into design on the same moments exactly. Mine took about a year of playing modern game before I decided to kind of get into design. But I think with my brother, I had a copy of either Catan or Power Grid. My first game. And same kind of thing. I never knew these kind of interactions were possible. It was so interesting, this puzzle that we were competing in a non-confrontational way. That's the same kind of thing, but it was still cutthroat in a way. There was so much depth to this, and I didn't realize that kind of thing existed. So from that moment, I probably got on Reddit and onto the board game forums and to see what else was out there. Started buying games that people recommended. So early on, I got into Galaxy Trucker and Space Alert. A lot of the collaborative games I love. And after about a year, I was working as a software engineer at the time. So designing things that were much more boring than the things I design now. But I always liked making things and designing things. And at one point, about a year into my board game journey, I came across some really interesting dice. I've always liked that. Non-transitive dice. I wonder if I could make a game out of that. So I ordered a copy of them and started just playing around with them and started tinkering with my first game.
Perfect. So now, that's the gas house.
Yes, that was a co-design as well. Well, I was obsessed with brass for many years, and want to hear the story. So I was obsessed with brass for many years. I played on this website called Lord of the Hammer, like hundreds of games. And it was, I considered it a perfect game essentially. And then there was some like contract dispute between the license holders and Mark Wallace, the designer. I had met Mark Wallace at Essen. He's like my Wayne Gretzky of like board games. Essentially, I wanted to be like Mark Wallace, and like with how like legendary he is as a game designer. And so he was having there was a conflict with a contract, and I just sent him a message on Board Game Geek saying, you know, I make board games. Our board games look awesome and they play awesome, and I would love if you don't resolve this issue with your contract, I would love for us to have a crack at publishing it with Roxley. Because we do an amazing job. I mean, it's like my favorite game of all time, and I would put so much effort into it. And he said, thanks for the offer, but no, it's not gonna happen. I promised it to somebody else. And then so I went back and I started typing again and said, no, you don't understand. Like this is like I have to be able to do this, and we're just gonna I promise you, you will not regret this. We're gonna do the most amazing job. Like I'm gonna dedicate my life to making this thing amazing. And then he replies like, okay, persistence pays off. So yeah, you can have it. So then like there was a I was like, okay, well, let me clarify. We want to do it as long as you like resolve the contract dispute like amicably or whatever. So they resolved all that eventually, and we said, hey, can we think like not just release a language, let's release a follow, let's release a sequel. And so he came up with like let's do Birmingham as the area. And so at first he kind of like he had a lot of projects on the go. He kind of like sent us a prototype, which was mostly like it was a lot different than Brass, and kind of like it's hard. We don't want to subvert people's expectations too much. I was talking about like we don't want to make the Last Jedi, which I actually think is good. We don't want to subvert expectations so much that our own fandom gets really pissed off with us. So it was so different from Brass and more like Asian industry that we were like, okay, why don't we like take the map that you got and we will kind of like take some of the ideas that you're trying to get at, and me and my friend Matt will actually take this on. It's like, I trust you guys and you can take a shot at that. So me and my friend Matt, we over the course of like a year co-designed Brass Birmingham. We played it, through a website called Tabletopia. So most of our playtesting was online, and then the rest is kind of history. Like by the end, we actually, but as we were playing, we were like personally, we're like, I kind of like it better than Lancashire, which is such an insane thing to say because Lancashire is my favorite game of all time. What we tried to inject into the game was the things that me and my friend Matt wanted to see, or what we felt to be a coupon of the ideas that we had for the base game. So obviously it made sense that we preferred it. We didn't think that actually the community would respond and they wouldn't like it. And there was a lot of doubt actually on wargaming, like these guys didn't know what they're doing. And like famous designers only, but they're like, you guys are idiots basically, like you don't know what you're doing. And so there's a lot of pushback, there's a lot of doubt. Then it was, and actually less people backed on the Kickstarter than backed like the reboot of Lancashire. So what we didn't sell even close to as many Birmingham on the Kickstarter because people just didn't believe that we did. So then when I was at Essen, the guys from Shut Up and Sit Down, the guy came up to me and said, so we played Birmingham, and we really love it. And he's like, I think we actually prefer it. Because I was like, I thought you guys didn't even like. I think you guys didn't like Brass. They have a whole video about how much they hate Brass. And then they're like, Birmingham was like one of our favorite, like they absolutely loved it. And he's like, we're gonna do a video. And I just like started crying immediately because for a small publisher, that is like insanely important. It was like it was a life-changing moment for me. It was very, very touching, and I just started crying. And that video, it has like probably 1 million views now. It's like got a very large amount of views, and that kind of propelled it. And when somebody as authoritative as Shut Up and Sit Down like talks well about your game, it's first of all it's going to get a lot of sales, and it's going to get people saying, okay, this is something that we actually have to, focus. Like we have to actually play this game and figure out why they like it. Let's give it a chance. So Yeah, and that was kind of how Brass Marine kind of propelled itself, started propelling itself. And it took many years actually. It took like 6 years for it to get to the number one spot, but it took a long time. Anyways, the question was, yeah.
But
I'm gonna give it a little.
I wanted to know what was the very first thing you designed and did it get published?
So for me, my first game I designed with those dice that I was talking about didn't turn out very good, unsurprisingly. But it was an introduction into the design community that I met. And there was a group of designers that met every week. We would iterate our designs. We would have this deadline every week of the changes you wanted to make, so you could get it on the table for other people and see how things work. So that game, I entered it into the Canadian Game Design Award that Mel just mentioned that we won this year. And it didn't do well. But my second game actually did get published. And so my second game was called Mask of the Red Death. And it's based on the Edgar Allan Poe short story about the same name. I had forgotten about the story. I remember reading it in English class in grade 8, I think, and loving it. And once I was into the design space a little bit, something reminded me of it. And the setting itself just felt like it spoke to a board. You've got these different colored rooms. They're all connected in certain ways. And you have a theme, and you have a feeling that's evoked. So I wanted to get that feeling of dread building towards midnight evoked in a board game. So I think it did fairly well as far as doing that. It's not. It had a fairly successful Kickstarter for the time. I think it raised 100,000. IDW Games published it, and I'm really proud of it. It was very cool. They got a really great artist called Chris Emily to cover it, the art rule book. So I am really proud of it. There's definitely things I would have done differently now, more development and different things, but that's just learning. And after doing this for 12 or 15 years, you kind of look back like, oh, I wish I had seen that, but you can't develop that.
Yeah, and the non-transit thing, we actually did get skyrocketed, so you did do your non-transit process with it. My first game, in 2006 was actually on my honeymoon. It was the World Cup. Yeah, totally. Yeah, she's like, oh my God, it's like signing a board game. Well, yeah, totally. Yeah. I have a very supportive wife. So yeah, on my honeymoon, I started designing a game called Slide Tackle. It was about soccer. The World Cup was on, and I love soccer. I still love soccer. So does Adam. I'm a good soccer player, actually. And so watched the World Cup, and I was like, I want to make a board game version of like FIFA or whatever. Because I played a lot of video games. Pro Evo Soccer was like a very popular game back then. So I wanted to like take some of those ideas and turn it into a soccer game. But I had this like, as a board gamer, because I had become a board gamer by then, I had this like perception, even in most games actually, it's like skill. What makes a good game is when skill wins. And this was like my hyper competitive, boy mentality. Testosterone mentality of intellectual domination being the only thing that a board game is about. So I wanted to make a soccer game with no randomness in it, which is, I learned, to go back to this time of history, there was not any, when you're just designing a board game, it was quite a lonely thing to do. There's no Facebook groups. There was a forum. We actually, the board game, the Game Artists of Canada, which we accepted in 2008, was a forum that I actually built the forum. But there was 8 of us or 10 of us that started this organization. Because it was so lonely and there's nobody to play test your games that knew what they were talking about, you couldn't get your board games tested by other game designers, right? So it was a very lonely thing to do. So you didn't know what you were really doing. You're just looking at other games and how they work. So I had friggin' mechanics in there that were from Puerto Rico for a while, and I didn't know the process. there was not really any like place to look up what is the process that you should use with designing a board game. So I like as a graphic designer, I was like, I'm gonna make all the cards. I'm gonna make them all. I'm gonna design them. They're so pretty, and like I'm gonna make the board's beautiful. And then eventually, I play tested it. Nothing functions at all, and it's like, oh, I just made a pile of trash. It doesn't work at all. And then eventually, I started. So I worked on this game for 4 years, and it was by the end of it, it was complete garbage. It was absolute garbage, and it was like there's just so many fundamental problems that are laughable when you look back. Like, who wants to control 10? Like, so I was like, there needs to be 10 pawns on per team, right? It's like, who wants to control 10 pawns to move a soccer ball up and down a field? Like, there's so many fundamental problems with this, like, comparison. But I don't regret it because it actually taught me how to design games. And the biggest takeaway from that, like that I still talk about today is there are a million things that don't work in board game design, and there are a very small amount of things that work. And when you discover something new that does work, like say, Donald X Vascarino, that designed Dominion. Like he discovered technology and it's modern. He discovered that with his friends, and like that as a designer, that makes me so freaking jealous. Because that is every designer's like dream scenarios. Inventing a genre of game. It's like if you're a musician, you've invented a genre of music, right? So that was the first game I designed, the first published game I designed, which I'm actually insanely proud of. It's called Jab Real-Time Boxing. It's a very inaccessible game. It's a boxing game played in real time. And I have my own 2 sets of punching cards, and I place them on my rival boxer who I'm playing against. And you're trying to create combinations of these punches that you're laying down, like let's say hook, jab, and then if you create that combination, you take the combo card. Opponent's also trying to do the same thing against you, and there's like counter punching, and there's like haymakers that you can perform, and it's actually extremely tactical and strategic, and also there's a massively high skill ceiling to the game, to the point where it's actually not playable by most people. So I showed like Casey Minstrel Games. I showed it to them, and I was going to publish this myself. I had 2 new children. I had 2 children in my house that were under the age of 2, so it was like I wasn't getting into publishing at that time. And so I showed it to them. They were like, so Michael Mendez, who owned Tasty Minstrel Games, he was like, we must publish this game. They played it for like 8 hours the first day. Because it is a like if you get it, you get it. So he is the person that got it, and they couldn't stop playing it, and they thought it was gonna be a hit. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna publish it myself. He's like, well, we will give you like, what do you want? Standard price. I'm like, okay, I want a 30% royalty. He's like, okay. But I didn't realize what a stupid error that was, because no publisher is going to want to actually pay that out. So he paid out that amount, but the publisher starts to actually have resentment towards that game because they're actually not even really making any money. They're just paying me royalties. Right? So what does that mean? That means they're not going to support the title. In fact, they want to stop to use awesome. Right? So it was a early mistake that I made, but it's also, first of all, real time is niche. Like not everybody enjoys real time. I wanted to make this game create feelings that a boxer would have, which it did. One of which is panic, and people don't like to panic apparently. And a lot of people when they play jab, they actually panic and they don't like that feeling. I love it because I'm a cortisol addict, and I've met like these guys who like there's this guy in Brazil. Very small amount of people love jab, but this guy in Brazil is like came up to me on a show. He's like, I'm the best jab player in the world. I'd love to play with you. He's like, I'm sure I played like 500 games of jab. Like, so it's like it was like a game with no audience. That was like I feel like quite brilliant. It was like there was a peer of mine who's also a game designer named Brad Talbot Jr. He signed what is it called? I can't think of it. Battle Code, which is like a Yami sort of fighting game. And his review on Board Game Geeks was like, I don't know how this guy designed this game. It's like it's designed by aliens, but it absolutely works amazingly and it's very fun to players or whatever. But it was so hard to understand that it just got failed, actually. It's also a sports game. And it's also a boxing game, right? Like the war game community, they very few people like Butan. Very few people enjoy boxing as a sport. And very few people
I just want to say, I was mentioning Mass of the Red Death, and that's a similar thing where there's not that much audience for it because I wanted people to feel stressed out, but they don't have enough information when midnight comes. And people were, there's a little bit of a memory element too. And that's part of it. You're like, you're unsure of the rumors you've heard. And that's the intent of it. And people talk about game geeks like, yeah, it was way better when we wrote stuff down. And it totally kills the point of the game. You're supposed to be stressed out. But so it wasn't for everyone.
Oh my God, I know it's so hard.
Okay.
All right.
But
Yeah.
at one point there was like an entire warehouse.
All right. So now how does the process
Yeah, I've done a little bit of each. Oftentimes it is the theme, like Mass of the Red Death. Other times, Head of Mouthful, you've got here, that's a game that I wanted to design a game where coming in second. So I was trying to think of in what situation would come in second. Well, in this case, Mousetrap. So fast mouse to get stabbed by the Mousetrap. The second one to come in is going to get the cheat. So that was the main idea, and that was all designed around that idea of that mechanic. And that's usually the way I go. But I have another game that's going to be on Kickstarter next year about building rainbows, and that was designed based on a component, basically. I with the other designers in my group, someone had brought in a big box of little toys and bits and stuff like that. So we were all playing around with things. He was offering it up to anyone who wanted anything in this big box. So I was playing around with these rainbow blocks, and they inspired a rainbow building game. Can happen all different ways.
Yeah, I generally start like I actually because I'm also a board game publisher. I often think about what do people want, right? So marketability. It's like I was just telling him today. It's like it'd be cool if called Final. You're just collecting records. People love collecting records, right? So Final, there you go. There's the game. So now, like, what is the game, right? We're talking about which is less appealing, but I still want to make it. We have a game that we've been talking about forever called News, and it's like fantasy hockey. And you're collecting players. You have like a rundown failing team of hockey players in like rural Alberta, basically. Your stadium or whatever, your fabulous stadium is falling apart, and you're about to fail. You're trying to keep your team together, but you're also playing hockey, so it's like fantasy hockey, but you're also managing a team. There's an interesting storyline, and it's something that you think that I think people would want to actually buy. Because I've been through the making games that people don't want to buy. That's less fun than making games that people do want to buy. So now I try to make games that I think people do want to buy. And sometimes it's also mechanisms, right? Or presentation. I'm working on a game called Cheating Kaiju. It's about it's a card game, but each player's got like a Funko Pop miniature type of miniature of kaiju, baby kaiju. And it's also got a deck of cards, and that's kind of how it's sold. So that would be like a product design perspective, like starting from like the design of a product. Like, this is how we want to operate. And so that's kind of how it's morphed into. But I also have like a game that I want to make eventually, like that I've worked on a long time ago, for many years, called Hooch, and that's about like the prohibition era. Because I think it's so fascinating about the five families in New York fighting for dominance in New York. So, like that would be something that I just want to make a game about that subject, that theme. But usually product design for me, product design or perspective or from storytelling perspective.
I just thought of class as well, whereas that is based on a backgammon, basically, it's a starting point. We will expect to design a backgammon, but it's such an old game. Could we make a roll and move game that's actually interesting and kind of has a lot of modern mechanics? When people hear roll and move, they don't think anything good most of the time. But so it was an interesting challenge to like base something off an older system and grow it and evolve it in a different way.
Yeah, we kind of like felt like, well, is roll and move actually a bad mechanism, or has it just not been fully, has it not been like fully explored from a modern design perspective? I think there's just like an assumption that it sucks, that there's no, it means there's no, the game's got roll and move, there's no real good decisions in it. That's not true. It's all it is a randomization. So yeah, we set out to kind of basically just kind of prove that it can, and maybe it spawns other roll and move games that are better than Flask. But we actually quite like Flask. It's got a lot of modern design in it, like Space Base. I don't know if anybody's played Space Base or Machidoro, but like that game, you know, Flask, you roll a die, roll your die on your turn, you roll a 3. You have something slotted into your 3 slot that does something extra. You get to extra space, you get to roll again or whatever. So there's some of those, you know, there's influences of other modern games that we injected into the back end and sort of backbone system.
Well, COVID definitely changed things a bit because we started having to go digital. So it became a necessity to be able to actually play test games. We use Tabletop Simulator for most of our play testing these days. So it's mostly digital, but at some point you do need to make a physical prototype. Where we are working in the board game industry full time at this point, it's a little different than back when I started out designing games and bring them up to the Sentry Box to play test them. So back then it was a lot more physical prototyping. The advantage of digital is you can iterate things so fast. You can easily make a bunch of changes. You can have a template in InDesign. A small change that will affect all your cards at once. It is a lot of work to be cutting and speeding cards, putting little tiles together, gluing. I've got a whole room in my basement that I should get rid of some of this stuff. It takes up so much space and I don't do much prototyping anymore. Of all the little bits and things that I needed when I'm doing a lot of that. It would be a thing you put on a show or a movie and just be cutting cards for 4 hours. There was a lot of that in the past. I'm a little off track on how finished is. So I have pitched games to publishers that are, one time I went to a convention in Salt Lake City and I had designed a game about 2 weeks prior. Brand new. But I got it to a workable state so I could play it with people at this convention. And it got signed by Made a Game at that convention because the core concept was solid enough. They could see that. And often that is enough if you're pitching games to publishers. You don't want to go too far down the graphical rabbit hole, make everything pretty, and because you're hesitant to make changes. If you put so much effort into a certain prototype, if someone suggests something should be different, and that means you need to redesign your entire board and change all your cards, you might not take that suggestion as seriously as you should have. So that's the advantage of digital. It takes a lot of time. So get something workable that's functional. It doesn't hinder the experience. You want good enough graphic design so people can make actions and see the state of the board, or be able to tell cards apart, or be able to see cards when they're pinned out without, if your information is in the middle of the card, you can't see it when it's pinned out. Little things like that that you learn over the years. Doing effective graphic design, making it functional enough and not too pretty.
Yeah, so it was like, when do you think it's ready to show other people? Like I only show early prototypes to other game designers because first of all I don't want to waste the time of people who aren't game, because when you're a game designer, it's like you give, you take, right? It's like a trade. So you show me your prototype, and I'll show you mine, and we will criticize each other's work. But like playtesters who are just friends or like people on the internet interested in your stuff, you don't want to you don't want them to be like, oh, that's a Gavin prototype. I don't want to play with this. Like so they're like a resource that you need to hold. You have to have a lot of respect for, and you don't want to show them anything that's like half baked, in my opinion, or in my experience actually, because I would like them to be excited to play one of my games, and you also get a different type of feedback from them. So I would say that I would show to game designers something very early. In fact, I just showed Chibi Kaiju to Adam the other day, and like there's gonna be a lot of non-functional stuff in this game. You're gonna want to it's gonna be like figuring it out session, and it was awesome. And you need another game designer for that. If you want them to otherwise you're often just generating your own ideas, and often the person you're playing with. So it depends on how alpha it is. Like if you're still working on the systems, then another game designer. And if you're trying to figure out if this is a valid product, they can start going to the general public, I guess, for their or gamers, for their feedback. But yeah. I think that. Yeah, so some games, I think a lot of it depends on the amount of content that a game has, right? So if you make a campaign, not necessarily a campaign game, and if you make a game with say a crit, you got all these hundreds of occupation cards and improvements and stuff, and all of those things need to be balanced especially because you're getting a random raw card in the game. Magic the Gathering has a ton of content, right? That game needs they have balancing departments, right? So even grass, like the grass Pittsburgh that we're working on, it needs a lot of work because there's a lot of content in the game that all needs to be balanced against each other. There are actually systems that you can get that can allow things to be balanced. But when a game requires balance, then and it's got a lot of content, then those games are going to take a lot more.
Sometimes it's going on the deal as well. You do need to get an adequate amount of play tests in every player count for one thing. And you start to feel things might not be right in this way, and make that change. You gotta play test again at all these player counts. An important skill, I think, in game design is being able to envision how something will work. I think that's a skill that I have that's helped me a lot over the years. Knowing whether something is even worth making. Just spending the time thinking how these interactions will play out without actually having to do it. And playtesting is obviously, I'm not saying don't play test. Playtesting is the most important and longest part of any game design. But if you can make a spreadsheet, and I love spreadsheets, figure out the relative value in points or time or whatever for different actions or resources, things like that. It can save a lot of just messing around playtesting, just fumbling in the start.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, and it is for me it was a learned skill because I used to be really bad at essentially creating a virtual machine in your head. That's a bunch of players playing your game and how they would enjoy it, and it always works better in your head than it works in real life. When you're a new designer, it works. It's like the best game on the planet in your head, and then you play it, and it's like it doesn't even function, and that's normal actually. But it just comes with experience and time. And playtesting, actually playtesting is you start to create this virtual machine in your mind where even when you're making changes, you know what effect those, there's a much higher probability that when you make those changes that they are going to have a positive effect on the game. Like basically no, it's like a book, like it's like no game is ever ready, like it's never done, no game is ever done. You basically, so I used to be like, I used to say, well, you have this like, diminishing returns on how much better a game is getting. And by yourself, it will diminish, right? And so when you add another person, I like co-designing, that person might be like, well, what about this? Okay, now, yes, good idea. That is an amazing idea. As long as you're a logical, there's a lot of designers, new designers that are like, no, all the ideas have to be mine. So I'm not like, they have to reject everybody's ideas, even if they're good, because they want things to only be their thing, which is the stupidest. A game, you need to listen to what a game is telling you it wants to do, because otherwise you will engineer it into something and it will be garbage. Which I've done actually. I had a game called Starpunk, and I got into this place, it was amazing. I tested it, and I was like, but now I introduced this other part of it that I wanted to have in the game. And I added it. For years I tried to get that other thing working, and it never would, and it was eventually part of it. So you have this diminishing returns, you add somebody into the mix who can help you basically unlock these hurdles and make it better. And it's getting better. If it's getting better, you should not stop. You should keep making it better. Because like, there is a ceiling. You're rolling a D1000 every time you design a game. And the potential for that game is that D1000 is rolled. So it's like this game idea is fundamentally only 560 amount of goodness that it could possibly be, right? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to maximize the potential of this game idea that you have. And so adding another person in the mix, but also we've learned over the years putting a game away, because you like Skyrim. That game we signed it so long ago. It was like so we signed Metropolis, and at first we were just going to fix a few things from with Metropolis that we didn't like about it, or that made it less accessible to the general population. And every time we kind of fix something, it would like cause a problem, and it evolved actually into its own game where you can recognize where it comes from. And it is very much still a kind of like a sequel to Metropolis, but it's also like very different. And to get it to start, like the game, we signed it so long ago that we had to re-sign the game with the designer because the contract expired. So we had to put it like we hit these walls along the way. We're gonna have to put it away. It's like we can't figure out how to make it work. We can't figure out how to make it better anymore. So we have to put it away. We can't waste our time banging our head against stuff. But then you come back in like 3 to 6 months, and you're like, okay, the problem was like your playtest. It's like, oh yeah, the problem is this. Here's the solution. You instantly know what the solution is or how to make the game better magically. It's because, first of all, you're playing all the time. So you're like, your brain over those 6 months or a year, however long it's in the closet for, your brain has you're a different person. You've learned other things. You've experienced other things recently. Like, oh, I played this other game, or Rico, which had this, or like a grid flow, which has a specific mechanic in it. That applying that mechanic here would actually solve the whole problem you were having before. And then you realize it did. Right? So putting it away is another massive.
Yeah, you can kind of tell by intuition when you've been something like this is not the final solution. Like it's working, but it's clunky or it's inelegant, hard to describe or explain, or maybe playtest you don't really get it. You just know it's not fully right. And I've had 5 games published over the years, and you can never change things anymore. Once it's done, it's done. So develop it as much as you possibly can, because if you get it published, there's always going to be things which you can go back and change. But if you do it beforehand, you don't need to go back and change them. They're done. You can't also do versions.
Before 4 years, like I spent in slide tag, probably. I think that all design, so I don't think that you should ever give up on anything, but some games will become vaporware. So you should always, I think, like, you do, like, it's important to focus on something, right? But it's also important to understand, like, it's important to not get frustrated and demoralized. So if it's not working, like we just talked about, put it away, come back to it later. Work on something it's either new. You can also get addicted to new ideas, right? Everybody, because the new idea will always be sexier than the one you're working on, because it's new, right? It's a new thing, and it's going to be even better than that, because when you get used to something, it's less exciting, right? So you don't want to like constantly be doing new stuff. So you want to be know when to, like, okay, we hit a wall here. Let's put this away even for a week. And like, let's work on this other thing, which is not as optimal. And it can be hard to unload the meta of a game and all of the nuts and bolts of how it works and how we're trying to, what kind of dynamics you're trying to create in the game, and load up the other game. But that you will get better at that, and you'll get better at that over time. Basically, unloading a project in your brain and loading it to the other one, and then it's like swapping a Nintendo card. Anyways, that's fun.
Yeah, setting games aside is very important, and you may never come back to it. I have a lot of prototypes on the shelf that I'll never come back to. But other games, one that I haven't touched in 10 years, that actually got signed but never got made. So sometimes you'll sign a game with the publisher and never comes out. That can be really disappointing. But with the decade that's passed since that game, since I finished that game, I played other games like The Crew. My game that I'm thinking of is a cooperative deduction game. So you're working together to solve these cards and stuff. But in the meantime, I played games like The Crew, a very wonderful cooperative game where you're doing cooperative trick taking, but it inspires a bunch of new ideas. Something that's come out in the meantime that I could apply to my own game and really turn it into something that's more of a kind of game things working together and like tasks and things like that. So it's always possible to come back to a terrible night.
So last time I have here.
I would say just start making. It's important to start putting stuff on paper, because if you just do it all in your head, it might not ever exist. You just have to get something down, whether it's notes or make some cards. If you have an idea for a card game or a game that might require 150 cards, like that, don't make 150 cards. Make like 20 cards, and play with that little bit of your idea, because it is going to change so many times over the course and over the iterations you're going to do. So just like creating that first little bit is so important, because you're going to see those early faults, and then you're going to make 40 cards and iterate those and make changes. And then if the game continues on, you'll grow it from there. Don't worry about making the full scope. Just start making.
Yeah, and like we've talked about a lot, but iteration. So making something as soon as possible, playing around like today to digital, and because digital is so much better. Like I used to actually have trauma making prototypes, and I eventually couldn't even make them anymore. Like I couldn't make physical prototypes because when I went to a playtest night, even if it was like pretty good, it was so demoralizing. Because I knew, I got to kind of read through all the graphics and cards. Even with a simple design, I would do we're going to introduce a new type of, we're going to rearrange this card, right? You have to rearrange the whole deck of cards, right? It's not just one card. So you have to rearrange that graphic on the whole deck of cards. You have to add a new piece of information. You have to balance it all and design it all. But then you also have to print them all out. You have to cut them all up. You have to sleeve them, and you have to throw all the other ones out. And it just became, you're just throwing trash away every week or whatever, and then you're just working all week to get that next prototype, the updated prototype done. And it was too much for me. So now I can't do prototyping anymore. I'm just traumatized to the point that I never want to do it again. So I think for new designers, especially if you're designing something simple, it's like very easy to to just cut out some cards and sheet of paper or whatever and do something very basic. But as if you take it seriously, then I think you gotta learn Tabletop Simulator. It's a sandbox tool on Steam. It's like $30. You have to learn how to use Tabletop Simulator. And you can even to make a card, like it's got tools to make cards. You can make cards in Microsoft Word. There's lots of free tools out there that will allow you to make cards. Make a card game in Tabletop Simulator. It's very, very simple. There's lots of tutorials on how to do it. And at first it's hard to use Tabletop Simulator. The interface is like designed by aliens. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing about it makes any sense, but it is an extremely vital tool, especially today, because for publishers not to be using Tabletop Simulator, they're just in a losing position versus other publishers, because there's other publishers they can play test the game way more. Get more people across the planet, experts that can we have brass experts on the other side of the planet, like the most winning brass lancashire player of all time, on Order of the Hammer and comes and play test the brass games. That's very valuable, right? The physical prototype, I can mail it to him, but I can't sit in on the play test, right? I can't be with him and see how, I can't observe his camera and see what he's thinking about. Why did it take him so long to do that? What is he thinking about? And then I ask him, why, Ed, you're struggling right now. What is going on in his brain? He's like, well, there's so many permutations with what I can do on my turn, and that's what AP is. Too many permutations on your turn. So you can solve those things faster. So Tabletop Simulator is my biggest recommendation. Learning how to use it.
Perfect. So that's all my questions. You guys are.
No.
Never asked.
We're coming back next year, though. For the state presentation.
So thank you, my questions were so good. Yeah.
I don't know RPGs at all.
Well, I mean, I played quite a bit. Like not to the level that an RPG player plays, but I played a decent amount of Dungeons and Dragons. And frankly, I like whenever I play Dungeons and Dragons, I'm like, why does this game feel so like archaic still? Like, why do they refuse to let go of these because Dungeons and Dragons came from. Before Dungeons and Dragons, there was tabletop wargaming, right? They called it toy soldiers, right? And Gary Gygax, the inception of it, from my understanding, is well, we're gonna take what they're doing with war games. We're gonna make Lord of the Rings war game, basically. But it still kind of works like that. All these years later, there's roll for this, this exact thing. It's really wargaming. These hardcore war games is there's some that you actually have to rotate your turret to a specific degrees, and that's how these games work. And they're that kind of stuff. When you actually look at some of these skirmish games, you look at what you did over the course of the game. It's well, we walked over here and we rotated, then we went over here and we killed 2 guys, then we went here. And it took 2 hours. But in a video game, that would have taken you 30 seconds, right? So I think that you get so caught up in the minutia of these things and your refusal to abstract anything out just makes the overarching storyline very compact. So like, and the reason why I had to stop playing D&D is like I think it's like the best thing that you can do with children probably because you're all on the same level. You're not their parents anymore. You're adventuring with them. It's like the best thing that you can do with kids. But I'm like, guys, I can't spend 5 hours to like get through like 2 combats, whatever, 1 combat. Because, you know, it's just too much. There's too many layers of mechanics. Mechanics, a lot of necessary to storytelling. So I'm actually excited by it, kind of mind blown that it didn't happen. Dice Throne is it's like a system that I feel like really lends itself to like we've been shown a prototype that was worked on by Manny, one of the designers of Dice Throne, and his buddy Aaron worked on this RPG system for Dice Throne. It's amazing, and there's no like you're using your Dice Throne character boards and the Yahtzee rolling mechanic as combat, and there's no it's nothing like it except for the fact that we're telling a story. So there's I think that RPG, if you look at RPGs from like the fundamental of what are we trying to do in an RPG when we're playing as a character and we're trying to have a big adventure, and we're using our minds to create that adventure with some aids of like physical components. I think that RPGs are one of the least explored in terms of like let's break away, let's forget all this stuff completely that we've thought about RPGs and make something completely different. So I think it's exciting and welcome and actually necessary probably for RPGs to really become truly a mainstream. Okay. Thank you guys. Awesome.
All right, guys, so that was the live stream of the panel that we did with Adam Wyse and Gavan Brown. Thanks so much for tuning in, Survivor.
And we get one more thank you for now.